Wi-Fi in the cloud.
Cool. What? Like
have you heard of the Grand Sea Conference?
heard of it.
Okay, yeah, so it's basically right there. And it's also like the Yellowstone National Park. So
Sounds pretty rad. Is it mainly rural?
yeah, for the most part. Most of Wyoming is Jackson's like Jackson obviously is in Wyoming, but it's the least like anything else you find in Wyoming. And it's an anomaly for being in Wyoming.
For our first WINTalk, we have a special presentation on artificial intelligence. Jason Copeland, class of 1994, is Vice President of Product at Ring Central, which is a unified communications software company. An Apple veteran, Jason has led Apple's iCloud in the acquisition of Siri, and he has also co-founded an AI startup that pioneered computer vision for drone navigation and facial recognition. He serves on Whitman's President's Board of Advisors and is chairman of the Whitman Innovation Network Alumni Advisory Board. Please join me in welcoming Jason Copeland.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. So, we're a cloud company, but as it turns out, we still rely on people, and we're about to do a software rollout this morning for a new product, and one of the 32 key engineers we needed to help with the rollout was evacuating his family from Miami. So I was on a conference call for about the last 3 hours on that. So I apologize for being late. I'm glad you guys got some lunch. How many people have a hard stop for 1 o'clock classes? Okay, so a good number of you. Okay, so I'll try to get through the content. I guess this is being video recorded, possibly.
Yeah.
This is my contact information. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to send you the deck and answer questions. My goal is basically just to sort of introduce to you guys some things to think about around artificial intelligence. When I was leaving Whitman in the late 90s, the internet was just starting. And for you guys, AI is just starting. And I certainly would have liked it if someone had given me kind of a guided tour of what they thought the internet was going to look like at that point in time. So I'm going to try to do that for you guys. So one of the things I'm going to talk a little bit about is something called deep learning. Deep learning is a specific kind of AI that basically has sort of driven the breakthroughs. What it is effectively is it is self-learning computer programs and algorithms that can teach themselves how to differentiate and predict things. And what you have to do is you have to give it a lot of data, and you have to throw a lot of compute power at it. Really, it's only been relatively recently that we've had massive data sets and we've had massive computer power. The likes of Google and Amazon, and AWS, Microsoft, etc. I'm gonna skip some of the technical stuff, but it's worth learning a little bit about deep learning. This was deep learning. The concepts were actually built on the idea that we can simulate the brain and the neural cortex with software. I think there are some biologists who would quibble with the fact that that's actually what deep learning is. But it's interesting that there was that definitely a model from biology was taken to computer science and has borne a lot of fruit. Neural networks are basically deep learning programs, effectively. And there are lots of different kinds of neural networks, but it's a way of processing information, and it's algorithmic. So algorithms are you're gonna hear a lot about. So just sort of defining some things up front. And the way machine learning works and deep learning works is it basically so for something like computer vision, is it with a picture, is it breaks down the picture into all of its component pieces. So it will take a face and it will sort of break down the face into different segments, then it will be able to basically rebuild that back up, and eventually you get facial recognition. And so what deep learning is essentially using big data to train algorithms, using lots of data, lots of pictures, lots of faces, lots of stock information, lots of medical trial information, whatever you're trying to do, and building these neural networks, and then perfecting them over time. And this is sort of effectively what the current form of AI is. I think if you think about personal computers being a breakthrough, and then the internet, and then mobile computing, I would put AI right up there with the internet in terms of its potential for changing our society and certainly changing work and some of those are going to be good, some of those are going to be bad, as we've seen with the web. When people ask me about AI in terms of how big it is, I would put it on the same level as the first personal computer, the internet, and mobile computing. It's worth also noting that we've had AI sort of enthusiasts before, right? And what these all resulted in were basically big disappointments. And after that, there were these nuclear winters or AI winters, where no investment happened. And I think the good news is that the AI is finally out of the lab and it's in products now, and this isn't going to happen anymore. But you do hear some skeptics, especially maybe like your parents, who have heard of AI before, like in the 60s and the 70s and maybe the 80s, and sort of like once every 10 years AI rears its head, and it kind of has disappointed every time. This time is different, and it's different for some of the reasons that I mentioned. But it's really a new approach to AI, and the old approach was really, like thinking about how do experts behave, and what are the rules they follow, and if we could just program a computer to follow enough rules, and we could make those rules go deep enough, we can make it behave like a doctor, right, or a translator. So AI was really popular with the government in the 50s because we needed all these Russian translators, right? And we didn't have enough, so like let's aim that at a problem that the Pentagon will fund. So if you're savvy, you aim your research projects at things that can get funded. You know, the problem is you never really got deep. You never really could get deep enough, and that's where the phrase deep learning comes from. Is you can get deep enough with deep learning. You can get the parameters deep enough so that it will be accurate in its predictions, and it will be accurate in its differentiations when it's making judgments. And the way, you know, as I said, you know, the key to this is really self-learning algorithms that have enough data and have big data centers to make all of these work. So, you know, convolutional neural networks was sort of the idea, and this actually has been around since, you can trace it back to the 20s, I think. But big data really wasn't available, you know, in terms of like having access to billions of photos or billions of stock transactions. That's relatively new, especially in terms of being able to, you know, access that all in one place. And, you know, there are a lot of new processors that are also making all of this work a lot better, which in turn makes data centers work better. There are some AI accelerators that are kind of interesting. So the smartphone has basically because smartphones are so ubiquitous, all the components of smartphones now are very cheap, they're very high quality, and they're easy to get. And they're being used now for other things, right? So they're being used in drones, they're being used in something called the Internet of Things, if you've heard of that. Like a Nest camera is an example of that, or a Nest thermostat is an example of that. This has about 17 different kinds of sensors in it, and it's got a bunch of different chips, including a chip specifically for AI. You know, I think robots, drones, smart cameras, etc. These are some of the platforms that I think are going to be AI enabled, that will make things interesting. And they're going to be continuously connected to the internet and to this tremendous cloud power that they have. And so, you know, this all we didn't have this in the 60s. We didn't have this in the 90s. You know, we didn't have this in the 2000s. It's been relatively recent that all this stuff came together. And chances are you're using AI today. So if you're doing photo search on your Mac, it's using AI. Or on your iPhone or on your Android phone. If you're using Siri, if you're using Google Translate, you're using AI. These were all used. These are all built using deep learning. It's embedded in Nest cameras. It's embedded in Amazon Alexa the product line, I guess. And so, in many ways, if you use a social network, most likely you're using AI. Your parents who are using Facebook are using AI. You know, it's worth asking, you know, kind of where's all this going? And the answer is it's going kind of everywhere. And if I were to run through, I think what I think some of the big benefits are in the sort of short to medium term, I would say, you know, you're way more likely to get killed in a car accident than you are any other way today if you're under 35, right? And if you're over 35, you're likely to get killed because, you know, you smoked and didn't exercise and, you know, other things that you should have done, right? It's not like we're really getting eaten by bears or you know, it's just, you know, car accidents are you know, way too many people who die in car accidents, and we're going to have self-driving cars be really ubiquitous in the next 10 years, and this is going to dramatically cut down on the amount of highway deaths that we see. I had like a very close call on 280 in the Bay Area last week, and you know, I saw an SUV basically T-bone a Prius, and I like went over to assist the driver, and you know, it's like that just won't happen again if we have self-driving cars. And the driver was texting and driving, and he probably he was arrested and all that, but it brought home to me in a very visceral way as I put a tourniquet on the woman's leg before the ambulance got there, that driving is actually one of the most dangerous things you can do, and that won't be true in 10 years. Similarly, for pedestrians, cars are really, really freaking dangerous. And so that's we're gonna see a big cut down on the number of sort of bike accidents and pedestrian accidents. Homes and sort of petty theft and things like that is home invasion, things like that. This is gonna become a lot less common because it's just not gonna work nearly as well. Right now, if you have ADT, it's like homeowners who have security systems, half the time they leave them off because, they're usually locking their children out or locking themselves out, and so they eventually turn it off. With AI, we're getting systems that are good enough to actually be on all the time and know who's a VIP and who lives in that house and just let you in. And so I think that our, sort of home security, school security, workplace security, is going to get a lot better, and that's a good thing. One interesting thing in Colorado, all of the public pools have been outfitted with a computer vision contraption, which basically looks for anything that settles down to the bottom of the pool and stays there, and that could be even baby, even sort of an infant size. Anything that settles down to the bottom of the pool and stays there for more than 9 seconds, I think. It sets off an alarm, right? So this is like the best life guard you could ever have, right? It doesn't get distracted by members of the opposite sex, right? In the pool, just like it's always watching, right? This has already saved a couple dozen lives just in Colorado, and so this so in-camera safety pools are going to be totally standard. Probably will be regulatory. Probably will be required for new pools in a lot of states, as has been in Colorado. There's been a lot of hype around drones, and I think, there's been a little too much hype in the short term, and probably not enough hype in the long term. These are going to be delivery vehicles. These are going to be eyes in the sky for emergency services. These are going to help bridge last mile delivery for critical drug delivery in Africa and other places. Drones absolutely wouldn't have been possible without AI. And what we're moving towards drones that are going to be truly autonomous, that will be able to fly from point A to point B, like 30 miles, no pilots. We're probably 4 or 5 years away from really good versions of that. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of those. Agriculture is not one of the things we like to think about a lot as being really tech driven, but there's actually a lot of tech in agriculture these days, and ag tech has become a pretty big sector, and AI is here too, in part because about 70% of our fresh water gets used in agriculture, and about half of that gets wasted. And so if you could have a little sensor and an AI brain on this big half-mile long sprinkler, you could make sure that just enough water is coming out of each of those for the plants that are under it based upon the color and the plant size. And so we're going to have smart sprinklers, and we already do in some places in the Midwest where this is being trialed. So some pretty cool things, that will help solve the water crisis that we're facing. And I'm from California, so we are seeing right now, farmers in cities, really duking it out for water, and hopefully this will help a lot. Last but not least, medicine is going to be really transformed by AI, and it won't. There are some things where it will dramatically reduce the number of people, like radiology, where they're basically you have really experienced people looking at X-rays or looking at MRIs and reading them and making judgments based upon their experience. that's the kind of thing that actually AI can do better over time than a person can, because people get better at it by doing it, right? But in a person's lifetime, they can only look at so many million images, whereas an algorithm can look at billions of images and get smarter than a human. I think this will still be a tool of radiologists, but one radiologist will be able to do a lot more than what we required in the past. I think there's some super interesting things around the ability to do real-time imaging for surgeons. My wife went to medical school and is a doctor, and in medical school, I can tell you, they go through a lot of cadavers, and it's kind of gross, but you know, it's like the only way they can learn, right? It's like they need to kind of get in and like see what's in there and like make some mistakes, and there's no consequences really, other than, you know, messing up part of a cadaver. And this is why people donate their bodies to science, and you all should. You know, but actually AI has the ability to create programs that would actually give, you know, someone an immersive experience that would be a lot more like operating on a real human, where there would be, you know, constant blood flow and breathing, and they would be having to manage a lot of things. So I think medical education is going to change drastically, and then I think a lot of surgery and other medical procedures will change a lot too. Last but not least, while we're not going to have Skynet, we are going to have some pretty badass robots that are AI powered. And I have seen a lot of them, you know, and most of these guys are in warehouses, and so, you know, for something like this, you know, you don't really want it strolling the aisles of Walmart. I don't know, what could go wrong, right? But you know, you might really want it on a port, in a port, or in a warehouse, or some other place where you need kind of a really flexible robot that can do a lot of different things. Today we've got kind of specialized robots doing these, but when you have smart robots that are more flexible, they'll be a lot more cost effective. And this is one that Boston Dynamics I saw working in a warehouse this summer. The Silicon Valley likes to talk about disruptions, right? And we talk about them like they're a really awesome thing, because, you know, it means that there'll be a bunch of startups and it's new technology, and Silicon Valley tends to think about new technology as always being great. But you know, AI, like any disruptive technology, you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? And there are going to be losers in this, and you know, things that are sort of repeatable tasks, or extremely rule-based driven tasks, those are jobs that are going to be done by computers in the future, and maybe not all by computers, but you won't need as many people to do them when you have you know, an expert lawyer who is teamed up with super intelligent contracts application. He's going to be able to do a lot more. We won't need nearly as many lawyers as we have today. By the way too many Whitties go to law school. You know, having been, you know, I'm just 20 years out, and I can tell you most of them either don't practice law or aren't happy about it. So, just a tip. You know, I think that where this gets to me a little scarier are maybe not for, you know, everybody in this room. We're just going to Whitman, and we'll have a variety of choices in terms of their careers, but are going to be the low paying jobs that a lot of people rely on to put food on the table for their families. And you know, it's not like these people are going to just be able to do their jobs better. These jobs will just disappear. They'll be gone. So I consulted to a robotic dishwashing company, before I took my current job, and you know, they're building a dishwasher that can, I actually was a dishwasher in junior high, something I don't put on my resume anymore. But that's a hard job, and it's a pretty complicated job because you've got to like scrub hands, and you've got to stack things in racks, and you've got to make sure that you're following all of the OSHA safety rules. Turns out that robots are going to be able to do this way better, way faster, way cheaper than humans. And robots don't ever get sick. Robots don't need benefits. Robots always show up on time, et cetera, et cetera. These things are just happening. So I think my big worry is especially for the least skilled in our society who don't have a lot of choices. On the upside, this is going to create demand for a lot of new things. Data scientists, people who can help. It's a lot easier if you can get a program partially trained, and data scientists are in huge demand in Silicon Valley. Computer engineers, kind of goes without saying. I will say that designers was one. I really liked to draw and paint in college, and I sort of was like, that's just a hobby, right? I had no clue until years later that there's actually a whole profession around product design, and those people get paid really well, and are super sought after, and so. If you're artistically minded, I would encourage you to think about design as a job, because we're creating new products all the time on faster and faster cycles, whether it's software or hardware, or usually a mix of both. There are graduate programs in design, and Google and Amazon and Silicon Valley and lots of other places can't get enough of these designers. Product managers are kind of you can think of it as sort of like team leaders. They keep the engineers and the designers and the IT guys and the manufacturing guys and the operations guys and the finance guys all sort of in line and rowing one direction. I think a lot of manufacturing is going to come back to America, and we're seeing that with a brand new car plant for Tesla that's going into Nevada right now. It's not going to employ as many people as the old car plants, as it turns out, and the people it will employ are going to be better educated than the old UAW workers in Detroit. But these are really interesting jobs. There's also a lot of, you're going to see a lot of computing basically installed in lots of buildings, lots of homes, and just sort of like we've seen this boom in solar panel installation. Installing smart cameras, smart sensors in homes, businesses, schools, etc., is going to be a huge business for a long time. And these things are going to need to be updated and repaired. And there's a whole industry here that's just beginning to be made. Last one is entrepreneurs, because AI is a foundational technology. You can do whatever you want with it, right? You can make a stock picking app. You can make a medical app. You can. A friend of mine is designing a system to get much better data out of medical trials. But I would say that the biggest sort of missing link in all of this are people who are creative enough and willing to take enough risk to go out and say, I'll try and figure out how to make a business out of this. There are all the tools there now, and so it's a fascinating time. I mean, Google is like giving away a lot of the AI for free, and people are building really interesting businesses around this. Sometimes people, ask me sort of like, well, how do I position myself for this? And should I major in CS? That's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. I majored in philosophy, and minored in Chinese. I don't think you need to, I think the worst thing you could do is, invest in a sort of tactical, short-term thing like learning Python and thinking that that's going to carry you through your career, because learning how to learn is much more valuable than learning any one thing. So I say one of the things you can do is just be AI literate and understand what is AI, what can it do, what's happening, stay abreast of it. Take a intro programming class, get a sense for what is this software stuff, right? You don't have to major in it, but even Woody's now has a chance to sort of dabble in this. And I would also just say, knowledge workers in every field are using advanced software tools, right? That are using AI, and sometimes they're using advanced software and hardware tools that are basically driven by AI. So I think there's sort of something around AI literacy that if you can be comfortable with technology, comfortable with software, and even maybe learn a little bit about how code is put together, you'll have a big leg up on those who don't. One of the things that AI can't do is it can't really be creative, right? We can tell AI to do things, but it doesn't come up with new ideas. It can't explain itself. It can't pitch itself to venture capitalists. This is one of the things that people, especially people with large backgrounds, can do. Quantitative thinking is, I think, something, I think that the ideal liberal arts grad comes out and is able to do qualitative thinking and quantitative thinking. Qualitative thinking and quantitative thinking, I think, are super, super important to have that balance, right? And being able, a lot of what's happening in deep thinking right now is being driven by math, statistics, and algorithms. So Google has rolled out a new computer kind of language or set of tools called TensorFlow. And it's basically, really what it is a lot of it is about abstracting the really hard math out of it. But if you understand what the math is that's happening underneath, they'll have a much better idea of how to use it. I was a calculus dropout, so I'm not a great example of this, but I did take statistics, that's is one of the more valuable things in terms of just being sort of numerate, literate and numerate. The last thing I would just say, are leadership skills, having the ability to put together a plan, move a team forward, think about how can I take a new technology and apply it to a problem and build a product to fix it. And that's one of the reasons why I think that thinking about innovation as as a college undergrad is worth doing, because you guys are actually all much more likely to be more creative than your parents, because your parents have been doing certain things all of their lives, as well as you guys are more open to new changes. And it's interesting right now in Silicon Valley, we're seeing college dropouts and recent college graduates pitching new ideas to venture capitalists and literally getting millions of dollars to start new companies. You guys, any one of you could do that with the right pitch and with the right idea. It's not easy. I did it, and it was hard. But it's something that's open, and it's a window that's open, especially to younger people in a way that's never been true before. It certainly wasn't true when I graduated. Unless you had some experience, you really weren't considered. You weren't considered for a leadership position in a company. But I think sort of the Mark Zuckerberg approach has changed this. I think one of the some of the sort of public policy things to think about are how will we avoid this higher unemployment? And I think that we're going to need to think about what are, and I don't have the answers, and I'm not an expert in this, but I would just sort of plant a few things in your brain of like, what happens if a quarter of the population suddenly their jobs disappear in the next 10 years? Totally possible. Totally possible. So, you know, like, is there some universal income guarantee? Certainly retraining's a possibility, but it's something to keep in mind. Let's see if I can try that slide again. So, you know, I said earlier that, you know, AI is one of the next great disruptions. You know, turns out these disruptions actually, yes, they've been driven by technology, but they've also really been driven by people. And so, you know, when you think about all these different things, you know, who are the great entrepreneurs and who will the great AI entrepreneurs be? You know, Bill Gates, you know, really led personal computers. Zuck is invented Facebook at least, you know, and I think set the tone for a lot of what's still happening in social networking. You know, Steve he sort of did personal computers and really drove the mobile computing revolution. But Steve was pretty young when he was a CEO, and had he not had that earlier experience in computers, he wouldn't have had a chance to come back and lead that very rare second act in technology, which is being able to pioneer a new field. So I mean, I think the question is really open as to, you know, who's going to lead the next, you know, who are the entrepreneurs that are going to lead the next great AI companies. We don't know, and I would say the field is pretty wide open, and that, you know, that's, if, you know, to me is exciting, and if I were you guys, it would be even more exciting, because you like, you know, life's a lot about timing, and the timing is really good on this one. So whether you're a freshman or a senior, you know, you have the chance to be one of these people. If you know, if you have a business idea, the Innovation Network is something you might want to get involved in. You know, I think that this is a great way to connect witties to other witties who are, you know, out in tech already, and also connected to you know, financial players who can help fund. Artificial technology overall, to me, I think is super exciting. It changes every day, and I suggest you try and keep up. I don't know if I had anything else, but that's my sort of AI 101 in a bottle. So happy to take questions.